So Peter, we've had a spectacular level of response to the email we sent out and the blog that we did about MPs' expenses this week, and a lot of it was really angry. What do you think are the key messages that we can take from what people have been saying?
I mean, the first is the level of anger, which is actually, I mean, a lot of commenters have been saying that this kind of issue has kind of dropped down people's consciousness. I think this latest episode has kind of shown that the anger is still there and doesn't take much to push it over the top. And it's ranging from kind of people who have got to the stage where they just think that all politicians are corrupt and themselves, through to those who actually are trying to be more constructive and actually show maybe ways forward. But what's surprising is we had over 8,000 people who actually took an action in little less than a week.
One of the ideas that I know a lot of people were suggesting on the blog was that Parliament ought to buy one large property. It could be New Scotland Yard or any other building as basically a residence for MPs, and that could be their London base. Do you think that's feasible?
Well, there are countries in the world which have done that, which actually have effectively blocks of flats for members of Parliament. I mean, the problem is that it could end up in a sort of enclave of MPs where they work together in Parliament and then they go back and they stay in accommodation together and they eat together and they don't actually interact at all with ordinary people. I think there's something positive about making MPs go on the tube or go on buses to cycle, to actually interact with the rest of the people in the capital. There were also security concerns that if you put all the MPs in one place, it does make it into a kind of security target. But I think the basic idea that rather than renting property at the taxpayer's expense, that we should end up having kind of married quarters for MPs, I think is a good one. And I think there's a model there that, you know, the armed forces have had. The Ministry of Defence runs thousands of homes around the country for service people. There's no reason why Parliament could ask them to take on that responsibility. And we couldn't buy homes across London which we owned by Parliament and which MPs can use rent-free for their period of time in office, and any profit to be made will get ploughed back into the public purse.
One of the advantages for me of that kind of idea, rather than say just buying a New Scotland Yard, is obviously that you can reflect the different needs that different MPs have. So, for example, some MPs are married with children, some are single, but you want to make sure that you have as wide a range of people standing for elected office and who are able to be members of Parliament. Already we have a problem where only just over 20% of MPs are women, very few are from an ethnic minority or have a disability. And also you've got a kind of professionalisation of politics, so increasingly they're coming from similar backgrounds. You wouldn't want to create kind of a one model housing situation which actually prevented people from different backgrounds from entering politics. I think it's really important that whatever housing solution we come up with actually reflects the different lives that people lead, and make sure that people from a wide variety of backgrounds can get into politics, because otherwise it does feed into that perception that many people have, including people who commented on the blog, that politicians are just a separate class from the rest of us, and there isn't that interaction that you were talking about earlier.
I think one of the problems now is you can already see that many MPs are perceived to be a class apart, but also in terms of their background. They tend to be richer than the average citizen. A lot of the people, can afford to buy large homes themselves, which is one of the reasons it actually sticks in the front of ordinary voters, is they see people who are quite well off, then claiming thousands of pounds on the taxpayer. So I think that's important, and I think actually providing things which can encourage ordinary people from a whole range of social backgrounds to stand is a good thing. But I think there is this whole point that we need to clean up politics. We do need to take the trough out and be seen that this is about people working on behalf of the public. But I think we can't just leave this as a whinge fest. We have to get away from this just being something which people are unhappy about and move it back to action. And there are things that people can actually do now, which there's an opportunity. They can write to their MP because MPs are sensitive to what the public say, and if they're not, we need to make them sensitive to it. But also, IPSA, the body which is supposedly in charge of running the MPs expense system, is consulting. And the more people who engage with that and make sure that the anger is felt, but also give positive solutions, means that we have a chance to stop this and not be back here in another year's time having a wonderful conversation but dealing with the same problem again.